Welcome, everyone, to SI Media with Jimmy Traina. Thank you so much for listening. We have Richard Deitsch from The Athletic to go through all of the latest sports media news. We covered a ton of topics with Richard, all the latest in sports media. And then, of course, my buddy Sal Licata follows Deitsch for our Traina Thoughts segment. Quick thing, we taped last week's podcast on a Tuesday, came out on a Thursday. And when we taped on that Tuesday, I didn't really know the severity of what was going on in Southern California with those fires. Obviously, completely horrific and heartbreaking situation there as it went on through the week. And felt bad it wasn't able to mention it, and wanted to just say quickly, obviously a lot of people are helping out in various ways. I've seen a ton of charities set up and people asking for donations and everything. I just want to point out a specific one here because it's in the sports media world, and I think it's really cool. Kevin Burkhardt and Erin Andrews from Fox have set something up. It's through the Red Cross. If you go to Kevin Burkhardt's Twitter, you can find it there. I had retweeted it, so if you scroll through my Twitter, you can find it there too. There's a link in Kevin's bio. And basically what Kevin and Erin Andrews have set up is if you make any donation, $10 I think is the minimum donation. If you make any donation over $10, you automatically get put into sort of a raffle, I guess, for lack of a better word, where you can then win 2 tickets to a 2025 regular season game, 2-night hotel stay, and dinner with Erin and Kevin next season. So whether you donate $10 or $200 or $300, whatever it is, if you donate through that link on Kevin's Twitter page, you get automatically put in the pot, and then they'll do a drawing, I guess, or something like that, and you can win that. So, for sports media, I think that's a really cool thing that they're doing, and wanted to mention that because obviously anything will help right now with what's going on there with the devastation, so many people losing their homes. All right. Thank you for listening to that. And like I said, if you want to donate and do anything to help, go to Kevin Burkhardt's Twitter page. I'm sure Erin has it on hers as well. It's a Red Cross it's all affiliated with the Red Cross, so you can probably find it through them as well. All right. Let's get to this week's pod. Richard Deitsch from The Athletic, followed by Sal Licata and Traina Thoughts. All right here, right now, on SI Media with Jimmy Traina. All right, joining me now, very happy to have him for the first time in 2025, my old colleague, one of the sports media standouts in the very small field. From The Athletic and from his own his own media podcast, Richard Deitsch. Richard, how are you?
Jimmy, first of all, thank you for the invite. Happy New Year to you and yours.
Way too late to say it, but that's okay.
It's all right. Happy New Year to Shelby. Obviously, goes without saying that the stuff in California is just horrible. I'm sure you've seen it as I have here in Toronto, and it's just awful. So obviously, my prayers out. We both know a lot of people from the media business who are based there. I do have, I have been listening to the podcast. And so am I allowed to offer, I don't want to offer critiques,
always,
but I'd like to offer,
always keeping tabs on me. Always keeping tabs on me.
I'd like to offer some observations.
Sure, go ahead.
This will be a positive.
Yeah.
To start with, the booking's been obviously fantastic. You have made it a point, I think you in trying to carve yourself out a niche in this space, is you want big guests, name guests, bull-faced names. You're kind of a Peter Luger, kind of like bull-faced page 6 kind of guy. And so when I see Ian Eagle, Paul Levesque, Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, those are bull-faced names. Agreed? So that's been a little bit of your. I hate the fact that you have me on because I look like a jabroni compared to some of the famous people that you have had.
Well, what I try to do with the podcast, if people haven't figured this out yet, is I try to at least once a month, I'll do I like to do 3 interviews maybe, and then I like to have on you or Marshan or Brian Curtis and do a little sports media, John Oran, what's going on in the sports media world. I don't like doing those every single week, even though maybe you can, but it's still tough. But yeah. I like to do the interview, and then I like to break up the interviews with something like this. And as I said on Twitter today, when New Heights tweeted out their latest podcast with LeBron, I said, New Heights has LeBron this week. I have Richard Deitsch. And people enjoyed that. So there you go. Boldface name.
I didn't see that line, but that is funny.
It's nice to be in the DraftKings partnership world.
That's a great guess, LeBron. Would before I get to a couple other points, will the sports media guest list extend to, like, let's say, I don't know, a Ben Strauss, a Mike McCarthy, an Austin Karp, or is it just the 4 or 5 that you mentioned, including myself?
It all depends. There's no yes or no to that question. It's
okay.
I booked the podcast very late, so it's not like, oh, in 2 weeks I want to have this person. It's like, it's Monday, I need a guest for Wednesday. Who is it going to be? And then, I usually go to Marshan or you or Oran and Brian Curtis, and we go from there. And it's also who I like to, you come on here and take over, so I can't do this with you all the time, but you got to have people who are good.
We if both of us get fired from our respective employers, we might be calling each other and try and make some podcast money. Next, Paul Levesque interview was excellent, unquestionably.
Thank you.
Really, really interesting. The second I heard some of that stuff, I knew you were going to get aggregated in like a nanosecond. You were, but in some ways, that's a sign of respect. I will say, though, that you are essentially at this point part of the WWE communications department, given how many guests you have. Would you agree with that? Chris Legend.
No. Well, it depends. Well, how many guests? I can tell you that I probably do a WWE person once every like 2 months. So
maybe it feels more because of the quality of guest.
Well,
I'm just saying right. And you also, I know you were at a show. You're just becoming part of I would not be surprised to see maybe a Jimmy Traina affiliation with WWE.
So when I have like Sean McDonough and Buck and Aikman and those people on, am I ESPN PR?
Yes. Next, no. In some ways, I guess we're all doing PR if we have people on to talk about their promotion. That said, some of it would be determine the content of the interview. I'm just busting your chops. Lastly,
no, it's fine.
This is the most interesting thing to me.
Yes.
One of the gimmicks now that you have, which I quite frankly enjoy, is you like reading the reviews, right? The iTunes reviews from people.
Yep.
In particular, you obviously, because I know you a long time, you are very bothered when a negative review comes in.
I don't care about a negative review. I care about the stars. Like if someone gives me, like if you want to, like you can call me an asshole, but give me 5 stars.
Yeah, that is that is an odd one. I'm sure I've gotten that too.
Yeah.
Are you not trying to babyface the audience when you read negative reviews to ensure that, because maybe some people feel bad for you, you get positive reviews down the line? I feel like that's a little bit of a work. Would you agree with that or no? Performative work.
Well, I don't know. What's the question exactly?
It's not a question. I'm saying if you read, by the virtue of reading negative reviews,
right,
you engender sympathy from people who listen to you. And I think you're trying to babyface the audience a little bit to then get positive reviews from people who are not happy at those who are just many times, by the way, unfairly, just blasting you with a 1-star review.
I read every review, so it doesn't matter if it's positive or negative. I probably have read, since I started doing that, 99% of the reviews. If someone comes, like there was like when we did it the last time, I think someone sent in a review just bashing Sal to death. And I didn't want to read that one because that's not a place for that. Your podcast. But anything that rips me, I've read 99% of them. So it doesn't matter if you leave a pot. Plus, as you should know, the iTunes review, what I don't like about it is there's no you can't contact that person. It's not like Twitter or Instagram where you have a name and you can DM the person. Like it's all anonymous, basically.
Right. Yeah. No, if someone wants to set a campaign up to just screw with your podcast reviews, it's the same thing. Like when people just like go after a restaurant or a business. I mean, you with Yelp reviews or something like that.
Right.
There's nothing. Anyway, I'm
not that important that someone would want to do that to me.
Yeah, I wanted to waste basically 9 minutes of the first part of the show.
And you did. It was a huge waste.
Yeah. Now we can move on to some interesting.
What I should do.
It's good to be here.
What I should do, and maybe I will do.
Right.
Is I should set it up.
You're not getting a 5-star review for this podcast. I guarantee.
No. I wouldn't expect one. What I should do, and what I need to start doing, is doing like a mailbag segment where I get an email or a tweet or an Instagram, and I can actually.
Yeah, Marchand on social media asks people if they have questions, like sports media questions. I like that idea. Like,
well, I do that. I do that for the column. I haven't really done it for the podcast, but
do it for both.
We'll see.
You're a big brand in the industry, man.
Oh, huge. All right.
Good to be, in all seriousness, that was a little bit of shtick by me. Good to be with you.
Always shtick with you. Always shtick.
Here we
go. Let's start with the NFL, which is, of course, king. The ratings, interesting for wild card, down across the board.
Yeah.
Games were terrible. You had a huge news story, obviously, with those horrific fires in California.
Yep.
Were you surprised they were down as much as they were across the board?
I mean, I think at this point, just given the strength in the NFL, I'm always surprised when they're down at all.
Right.
Even flat is the new up, as they say in our world. So if something is flat, like to me, and that's a win because just less households, with cable and traditional television. But I think some of it, honestly, is the fact that last year, if you remember, the Cowboys and Packers played in that mega game, which was best wild card round since 2015. So inevitably, like, you're going to be down from that because the Cowboys are a polarizing team. People love them, people hate them, but they are always going to be watched. And so, Fox was looking at a decline from that, and they got a pretty significant decline in that game, and then everything comes down from that. But in terms of the averages, this is why I like John Lewis at Sports Media Watch. If you read his site, it's just there's so much there that you can get like historical trends. Last year, like unless you got such great games, Jimmy, and unless these games went into the fourth quarter, by nature of last year's record, I think it was inevitably going to come down. So I'm always surprised, like big picture, but once you go into the numbers of this past week, I'm not surprised. I actually think this week is far more interesting because this week, in terms of the divisional round, if you remember that Chiefs-Bills game was a monster, and I don't know if even with like the great Ravens-Bills game, I don't know if any game can touch the Chiefs-Bills last.
You just stole my thunder because that's where I was going next. But I just want to piggyback on one thing you said. It is interesting, even in this world with gambling now being so prevalent, whether it's with a point spread and over under, player props are way bigger than anyone imagines with touchdowns, yards. It's still with the ratings. You need to have a close game.
Agreed.
It's really shown. If the game's not close, you're not bringing in the fringe fan at all. The fringe fan will go if it's close. But like Pittsburgh, Baltimore, 21-0 at halftime on Amazon, the fringe fan's not coming into that game.
Yeah. So if you look at the viewership numbers, like a lot of times, like we can get access to the peak, the peak when it hits its high. Yeah. Almost inevitably, the peak in a game that's close is fourth quarter late, right?
Yep.
And that's when you start getting your big audience because it builds. When you see a peak in the first half, it's usually a blowout in the second half, and people just bailed out. But I'm with you. Even as big a sport as the NFL, if it's 30-7, you're out. You just unless, admittedly, you've got player props or you over under means something to you. If you're not, let's put it this way: if you're not a fantasy player or a gambler, and you're a casual, you're probably out.
Well, that's what's really interesting. The Steelers Ravens game on Amazon on that Saturday night drew 22 million viewers.
Right.
The point spread was still in the balance there because Baltimore was favored by 9. I would love to know what that number was without the people who bet that game waiting to see a cover because that game was unwatchable, basically.
Yeah, Amazon put out, I wish I had it in front of me, but Amazon put out a release. It peaked at 24. I don't know when that time, it might have peaked late. So that would support your theory in that there were people who were still interested in paying attention to that. They didn't beat Peacock, but it's still a good number. I mean, again, if we step back for a second, if me and you had this podcast 3 years ago and somebody had said streaming is going to be getting 22 million, we would have been like, what? I don't know.
But it wasn't surprising to me because
they're not Fox or CBS yet, but they're essentially close.
But Prime has so many more subscribers than Peacock, so it was a little surprising to me.
Well, but did Peacock was what? Remind me, was it Chiefs? Who did Peacock have last
Yeah,
year?
it was Chiefs Dolphins.
So they had the Chiefs,
Yeah,
right? Which
right.
is, other than the Cowboys, essentially the glamour team in the league.
Yeah. So that leads me into where I was going. You touched on it. So obviously, Ravens, Bills. If you're an NFL fan, this is as good as it gets. That you have
Yep.
the entire narrative with
10 out of
Josh
10.
Allen and Lamar Jackson. They have the money time slot, CBS 6:30 on Sunday.
Yep.
So I'm like, okay, are they going to let me see, like, how high can the rating go? And then I went and looked at last year, same time slot. It was CBS 6:30. It was Chiefs against the Bills, and that game got 50 million.
Yep.
So this game's not getting 50 million because if you don't have the Chiefs now are like it's Cowboys 1, Chiefs 1A. That's where we are now with this.
Yeah, and sometimes it flips. Would you agree? Sometimes the Chiefs are 1
Yes,
and
yes,
Cowboys are 1A,
yes.
depending on what the Cowboys are doing. But
Yeah.
yeah, they're like
So
Go
just
ahead.
to finish off, so what's interesting is CBS has one of the best, most anticipated games in a long time. It's not going to do as well as last year.
I agree. But again, last year also has Mahomes Allen, so it's a very
Right.
similar kind of, two of the best quarterbacks in the league. But you're correct. Two MVP, essentially the MVP race is featured in this game. Bills are a great draw, two great
Yep.
offensive teams, second and third, I think, in the regular season. It
Yep.
has everything. It has a revenge factor, right? Because the Ravens destroyed the Bills early. But you are correct. I have to do a like a watchability index for the Athletic, and so they asked me to do like viewership predictions, and what do I know? But I got to throw something out there. So I predicted 47 million for this game. So a great number, but still 3
Yeah.
million less than last year. And part of my prediction is the game's going to be tight. If the game's not tight, that'll be lower viewership number. But you're correct. It just shows you that the Chiefs, what the Chiefs have become. And I do think, if you're going to be honest, just as a sports media person or fan, Taylor Swift last year in particular had a factor in that, right? I mean, she was going to draw some casual fans that you didn't expect. That might happen again this year. I'm not sure. I will say that Chiefs, it's really interesting enough that Chiefs Texan game has the worst time slot. Feels like a bit of a dog, but it's the Chiefs. So who knows?
I'm very nervous about the production of that game. I have a funny feeling. Now, I think Buck and Aikman I don't think they're just the best crew. I think they're by far the best crew. But they're going to have the Jason Kelce, Travis Kelce brother angle combined with Taylor Swift being there. That's got major potential to be a very annoying broadcast.
But again, I happen to agree with you in the fact that I think the best working team right now is Buck and Aikman.
By far.
I agree with you. I
By
don't know
far.
if I say by far, but in my opinion, they've had a great year. I know that's your team, and listen, they deserve all the praise.
I like the other teams, but when I'm watching a game, here's where I'll say it this way, which is a very probably immature and unintelligent way to say it, but that's what I am. Troy Aikman never, ever annoys me. Ever.
He's had
All the other analysts annoy me at some point.
That's interesting. They,
Of the A crews.
the A Crews. Okay. Brady annoys you for what reason? I'm not saying
Because I feel like he should be better than he is.
Okay.
I feel like he's holding back. I feel like he's been coached too much. I shouldn't say he annoys me. I would say I'm a little disappointed. He's not bad,
Right.
but is he listen, if you want to be fair about it, I mean, Greg Olson is so much better.
He's better. That's 100%.
I mean,
that's not really even for debate.
Right.
It's really a question. Anyway, I didn't mean to.
We'll get into Brady. but stay with if you want to.
So yeah. So the good news
The
is
Chiefs,
you got,
ESPN.
Yeah, the good news is you got Joe Troy, Lisa Salters.
Right.
You got a good. I don't know if Laura Rutledge will be there too. You got a good group there, so the announcers are not going to be an issue. You still have the Chiefs. They're a fun team to watch.
Absolutely.
There's an interesting question about them, given the fact that so many of these games this year were tight, right? They really haven't blown out anybody, but they're still the Chiefs. They're still at home. I'm not a believer in the Texans. You could be right. Like, I hope for the ESPN production sake, because they got the Chiefs, that they don't sort of just lose themselves in Kelceisms and
just don't shoehorn Jason Kelce into the game.
That feels more like a pregame play.
Yeah, which is fine.
Yeah.
Leave him there. Don't shoehorn him in.
Yeah, listen, the ESPN, this has been written to death, including by me. The brand right now has really based its bets on a handful of sort of talents, right? That they really just want to highlight to the world in as many mediums as possible. McAfee, Stephen A, Greenberg, Van Pelt. Kelce is like in that, he's on that island. He's not in the mansion with the other dudes, but he's there. And I agree with you
I
in the sense
disagree.
that,
I don't agree with that necessarily. I agree with you from the standpoint.
They gave him a late night show. He's worked there for a year.
Right, but not because of the sports fan.
Oh yeah, right. I agree. It's because of the popularity of New Heights, and he crosses over his wife.
But all that stems from his future sister-in-law. Well,
but his wife's a juggernaut too in terms of her.
And all that stems from his future sister-in-law. She would not have the podcast number she has.
I agree.
If every Swiftie wasn't listening to it.
Let's be honest.
And the Swifties are lunatics and consume any content they can possibly consume.
Without that connection, they'd be at a different level of fame. They'd be famous, but not at this level. I agree. I mean, to argue otherwise is silly.
Right.
But listen, Kelce is he's good on TV. He's likable. I think that it's interesting. Like, these networks kind of know the NFL is watching, and they know NFL broadcasting is watching. You've had guys like Mike North and people like that on, Hans Schroeder, et cetera. Like, you can only go so far to sort of make this like entertainment television. So I think that I feel confident enough that it's not going to be that your fears are not going to be realized. It's not going to be too overwhelming with Kelce stuff. That said, if Travis Kelce goes off for 3 touchdowns, maybe all bets are off.
Right. Well, also you have Jason Kelce. I mean, ESPN, you would think, wants to promote his show.
Yes.
Here's his brother. They're going to get 40 million people watching that game, and save it. I'm just saying when they kick off, leave all that stuff. Do it in the pregame, whatever you want to do.
If Taylor's there, you're getting shots of her. You can live with it. Of course.
Well, you got to deal with that. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. Right. But don't go overboard. And again, if he drops a pass, show her when she drops a pass. That's what I'd like to see.
It's actually better television, don't you think?
Right. Well,
all right.
That's good. Underdog is the best place to cash in on all your takes during the playoffs, which players are going off and which ones are ice cold. With over 5 million happy players and $2 billion won, Underdog makes it fun and easy to cash in on all your favorite athletes' performances. With their pick'em game, you can win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on player stats, i.e. yards, touchdowns, interceptions, and more. Underdog is the only pick'em platform that puts the power to cash out in your hands. Now you can either keep writing with your entry or tap the Win Now button to cash out whenever you want. Every dog deserves a second chance, and with Underdog Rescues, you can get your money back and receive a promo if an early injury causes your entry to lose. What I'm looking at for this week with Underdog is simple. A lot of players playing for incentives. You have wide receivers who need a certain amount of catches, running backs who need a certain amount of yards. I'm looking at those players, and that's where I'm going to go for a lot of higher plays on Underdog. Underdog is the best place to play Pick'em. Download the app, sign up with the promo code Sports Illustrated, and deposit now to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. That's promo code Sports Illustrated. Must be 18 years or older, 19 years or older in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 years or older in Colorado for some games, 21 years or older in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado for some games. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. Also in the playoffs, Brady and Burkhardt have the Lions-Commanders game.
Yeah.
The Raiders want to hire Ben Johnson, who is the Lions offensive coordinator. Tell me, where's the conflict of interest that I'm supposed to get all hot and bothered about?
Listen, I'm not saying for you to get. I saw your column.
I just have one question. What is the conflict of interest, and how will it affect the viewer? That's my question.
Again, don't paint me as Johnny Journalism here. Just let's have a conversation.
I used to love calling you Johnny Journalism in the SI days.
Quite fun.
Yeah.
Now I'm Johnny sleeping. So the conflict is acknowledged and exists. Like no one's. In some ways, it's not even a story because we know about it. Tom Brady's an already owner of the Raiders, correct?
Right.
The NFL has told him that he has certain restrictions. He cannot be in production meetings. He has limited ability to criticize officials. He cannot talk about like other franchises in a certain way. That is the conflict. The conflict is that he is.
What's the conflict?
Well, Jimmy, he is a member of an organization.
But how does that affect his broadcast, and how does that affect the viewer?
Because in theory, those who are calling games are supposed to be neutral observers of the game, correct? Or no? Or do you not disagree? Or do you disagree with that fundamentally?
I don't find Tom Brady to be a neutral observer. Like when he's calling a Bucs game, you think he's a neutral observer?
I think the reality of all this
he's friends with all these guys.
Correct. I think the reality of this is a lot of the analysts are absolutely not neutral observers. I believe
of course not.
Play-by-play people are. To think you've had Joe Buck on a million times as I have. To think Joe Buck is rooting for the Ravens over like the Patriots is
But my point is this: I don't think Tom Brady is going to be rooting for the Lions to beat the Commanders because he wants to hire Ben Johnson.
I agree, and here is what, in my opinion, Tom Brady owes the audience. If Ian Rappaport is correct in his reporting that Tom Brady is recruiting Ben Johnson, you owe it to the audience at the start of that broadcast between he and Burkhardt to come out and talk about that and say, hey, in my other role, I'm doing this. I think this guy would be a great coach. I want everyone listening to know that I think the world of him. So you put that out there. After that, fantastic, Tom. Now I can judge you based on how you talk about the Lions offense. If you don't bring that up, am I not as a viewer always thinking, what does Brady really think of this team or this offense as he's recruiting this dude? That's what I think you owe the audience, transparency.
I 100% agree with you. Okay. 100%. They need to at the top of that, not in the pregame show.
No, don't let Michael Strahan and Jimmy Jones.
Right. At the top of that broadcast, Tom Brady needs to say, obviously I'm with the Raiders now. Yes. Ben Johnson's a hot candidate. Whatever he has to say. I agree with you 100%. My point is Tom Brady's call of that game and the viewer experience listening to that game is not going to be affected in any way, shape, or form by Tom Brady trying to hire Ben Johnson.
It is if he doesn't acknowledge it to the audience, in my opinion. That's where the viewer is impacted. But do I think that Tom Brady somehow is going to like crap on the other team? That
exactly
makes no sense.
Right, and here's the other thing: no matter who does a Lions game, whether it's Aikman or Collinsworth or Romo, they all bow down and genuflect to Ben Johnson. So for Tom to do it, it's not going to be. You're not going to be able to tell. Like, there's not going to be a play where Goff throws a pick and Tom goes, Ben Johnson dialed it up right. He just made a bad throw. Like, that's not going to happen.
I agree with you. And the other thing too is, and I feel like I've moderated myself on this, So when I was much younger, I was a little more gung-ho about conflicts of interest. But like you cover this stuff long enough, there's just conflicts of interest everywhere.
Right.
So the way I and I'm a big tennis fan. My God, like that sport is ripe with conflict every day. What I think is a fair expectation, though, as someone who writes this stuff and then as an audience member, is just to be transparent about the conflict.
I agree.
To acknowledge it to the audience, and then after that, then you as an audience member, you make the decision based if you think this guy is on the up and up or not.
Yeah, and I think most people watching that game will know that Brady is trying to hire Ben Johnson. I mean,
which is why if you acknowledge it, you
I agree.
Out, right?
I agree 100%. Yeah, like the conflicts that bother me are the ones we don't know about. Like when there's a broadcaster who has an agent who's the same agent as who is representing a coach in the NFL. That's the problem. Those are the problems.
All the time. I agree with you. Which is why I've sort of mitigated some of my thinking, is because it's everywhere. You can't sort of stop it. The reality is, like, CAA has broadcasters as well as they represent, in another division, players and coaches. Like, it's just those conflicts exist. What I think the only thing go ahead.
The problem I have is the continued use of people using the phrase conflict of interest. I think people just like to say that because they think it makes them look smart. What the issue is, which you hit on, is transparency, not conflict of interest.
Which again, to me, like, I think the only thing you would owe the audience there is, let's say you share the same agency, right? And you're interviewing that person like that. Just say it. Just like, hey, we both work for the same. We're both repped by the same agency.
Well, that'll never happen.
I know, but then at least as a consumer, I can then make the decision, like, how I process this. I imagine a lot of people don't want to acknowledge it because they fear that once you make that acknowledgement, people are going to think you're on the take, right?
Right.
or
Of
that
course.
it's an easy. Anyway, like I don't think we're so far apart on this one. There are a lot more hardcore people on this than me. I become very, I don't know if it's cynical or worn out by the sense that like I see this stuff everywhere, like in every sport, all over the place, and to like not think that it doesn't exist, you're fooling yourself. And
Yeah.
even again, like a perfect example of this, like Teddy Bruschi, right
Hmm.
on Countdown, very tight with the Patriots, right?
Right. Right.
Right. I think he might even be like an ambassador for that team. So inevitably, like he has a POV of the Patriots. Like he
But he's
wants,
not doing games, so it's a little
but he
different.
wants him to do well. So it clearly like sort of would impact his thinking. But people know that, like who watch that show. So the transparency already exists, and I think that's all you should ask for to me.
I agree. I know what well, let's see if we'll still disagree on this. This
But
is
you
where
like you were trying to like take some shots at the conflict people who like wave the
well,
conflict.
just people like conflict of interest. What's the conflict?
Yeah, I'm more bothered by other conflicts of interest that actually can impact us, like in Washington D.C. and elsewhere.
I'll say it this way. Maybe I'm wrong, but this is what I feel. Tom Brady's performance on Sunday will not be affected one iota by the fact that he's trying to help hire Ben Johnson.
I agree. His performance will not. But
so then, who cares if there's a conflict of interest?
The audience should know it exists. That's
Transparency. Yes, I agree. We agree.
I don't want to go back on this.
We agree.
It is a conflict, but it's
not a conflict of interest.
Kind of
All right, let's move on. Here's where we'll disagree. Let's disagree on something that we really disagree on.
Right.
Because this goes to your Johnny journalism stuff.
Oh no.
Do you still? Because I remember even back when we worked at SI, you still think the rules analyst is the greatest broadcast invention of all time, or do you understand they're completely useless?
I think I called Pereira like a television game changer. I don't know if I called the rules analyst position the greatest position.
Okay, all right.
I stand by that. Mike Pereira did change television, sports television, dramatically.
How?
Well, you never ever prior to Mike Pereira had any person who had officiated before come on and explain to you why things happen like they did.
Well, they don't explain why things happen. All they do is tell me what I just saw. 95% of the time,
No.
maybe 5%. They give
Pereira,
you rules.
the best people like Pereira, Sterator is excellent too. They explain to you why things happen, whether it catches a catch.
No.
Oh, come on.
They show a play. The guy's knee is down. They go, "Oh, let's bring in Gene." Yeah, his knee is down. I know. My eyesight's functioning. I can see that his knee's
You're
down.
being too flippant with these guys.
I'm not.
I think it's valuable.
And then the worst is when they get it wrong and they're defending the rules analyst makes a mess of what's going on 75% of the time.
Don't be like one of
Of course
those,
you
like,
do.
Don't be like one of those dudes who's like, "Oh, sideline reporters are useless. The coaches say the same thing all the time." The coaches don't always say the same thing all the time.
I'm talking about the rules analyst.
I know.
Here's the thing. The sideline reporter does not end up causing havoc during the broadcast. The rules analyst does. They get it wrong. They defend the ref. They say the thing. They say that the call's going to be this. The call's the other thing. What do they do? If you need a rule interpreted, bring on the rule analyst. Don't bring the rule analyst on to say the guy's knee is down when I see it with my own two eyes.
But again, Sterator cannot know what the official is going to call. He's just basically giving his opinion on what should be the call.
Well, and then when they get it wrong, they defend the ref. It's just ridiculous.
What you want the broadcasters in charge of this instead?
Yeah.
Oh, come
again.
The former refs know far more about the rules than the broadcasters.
Fine, then bring them on when we need a rule interpretation, not to tell me what I'm seeing with my own two eyes.
I love it when Aikman and Russell York go back and forth. Like they sometimes they disagree. I like that. It's good TV. And my apologies, Russell, if I got your last name wrong, which I think I did.
Yeah, get it together.
Will he be listening to this podcast? No.
Troy does.
Does he? Regular.
You don't know the famous Troy Aikman, Chris Russo story?
Probably been listening since I hosted. But anyway, go ahead.
College football.
No Chris Russo stories. Come on someone else's time.
I just said, you don't know the Troy Aikman, Chris Russo story?
I'm just busting chops. Go ahead.
Because
I honestly don't know it.
I had Russo on the podcast. He was complaining that he couldn't get Troy Aikman on his Sirius XM show. Troy listened to the podcast, texted Dog, and said, "I heard you on Jimmy Traina's podcast say you can't get me on. I'll come on anytime."
Excellent. I like Troy. He's a stand-up guy. I don't. Fan is not the right word, but I got a lot of time for Troy Aikman.
All right. College football.
Yes.
I was shocked that the Notre Dame Penn State game only got 17 million viewers. It was on a Thursday night. Now, listen, I have said for years that the Notre Dame cachet and mystique is so overblown.
It's a little overrated. Yeah, I agree.
I don't think people care about Notre Dame football like other people do. I think that got proven out. And then Ohio State on a Friday night gets 20 million viewers. That's 17 million for the Notre Dame Penn State in a close game. That had to bother some people in the college football world, I would imagine.
Well, Ohio State is a great brand, but Friday night's tough. It's just a tough night. So
they got 20 million for that game.
No, yeah. I mean, again, I don't think that's bad for that.
No, that's not bad at all. The 17 million for Notre Dame Penn State on a Thursday. Can I give my theory
on this?
Go ahead. Yes, I'd love to hear it. That's why you're on.
My Notre Dame theory. Again, Notre Dame is a top 5, top 6 television team in college football. So, know that I realize sort of where their place is. But here's the but. I think that people in sports television kind of have more of a mythology about Notre Dame than the average.
Yes, 100%.
And that's why, because it makes for good television. And I think producers and directors and executives love the Four Horsemen and Touchdown Jesus and all that stuff. But I don't know if the average 25-year-old fan
100%
is so gaga about Notre Dame. Now, if they win a championship, maybe that changes. But I'm with you. Where Ohio State, Alabama, Michigan, Georgia, some of these other schools, I think, are far more sexy for your average college football fan.
Absolutely. Good take by you. All right. We're in agreement there.
Good take.
I should have touched on it. Just one thing, going back to the NFL, because I meant to mention this. You'll probably have a good way of summing this up, but
no.
I mean, how badly do CBS, Fox, NBC, ESPN, and Amazon want the Cowboys to hire Deion Sanders?
That's obviously content.
And that'll be one that it's going to be really bad for the average view. That storyline, if it happened, they're going to go so overboard with that whole storyline. But those networks are frothing at the mouth.
Yeah, so multiple things. One, in terms of the shoulder programming, the debate shows and stuff like that, it's weeks upon weeks and months upon months of content. I mean, if you thought ESPN overkilled it with Tebow, it's basically the same exact thing.
It'll be way worse.
Yeah, it'll get into very stupid areas, and as this stuff always does. But it's obviously great, and I guess I don't want to be highfalutin. I'm sure the Athletic will write the bejesus out of it too. But it would be massive content because you're talking about Hall of Famer in the NFL, one of the most braggadocious, quotable people in the history of that league. He's actually gone on to be a pretty good coach. And so there is an interesting element, could it actually translate for Deion into the NFL? That's interesting. You already got Jerry Jones, who I would say most polarizing owner in the league. Woody Johnson isn't, because I think more people hate Woody Johnson.
And people outside of New York don't care about the Jets.
Yeah, Jerry's half-half. Yeah. People love him, people hate him. So you're talking about
Jerry's a way bigger character than Woody Johnson.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And plus he's got a big documentary series coming out, right, on the Cowboys. Yeah. So he loves that shit. I think they would. I mean, they would love it. The trade-off for an ESPN, who obviously benefits from Colorado being college football, is a great trade-off for them. You'd rather be NFL.
Yeah, so, they got Belichick now anyway.
Carolina. I think it would be. I'm not saying it's going to get to Tebow level, but it's if you remember how much coverage there was at Colorado when they went on their 3 or 4.
Yeah, it was absurd.
Double that. If you thought that was over the top, this will be 100%. Over the top.
Yeah. And I said this.
Go ahead.
I said this on Twitter yesterday or the day before. Now, what people listening have to understand is there is a limit on how often a team could be on prime time. It's 6 games. And I meant to look up, and I was going to reach out to maybe Mike.
The Cowboys would be anyway.
Right, they would be anyway. And I don't know how that. I know it's the max is 6 times on prime time, but I don't know what that means. I don't know how that factors into.
It doesn't factor into the Sunday window.
Black Friday game.
No.
Or I don't know what.
Yeah, that's you know what? I actually don't know the answer to that.
That's what I'm. Yeah. But my point is this: the Cowboys next year, they won't play one game at 1 o'clock on a Sunday. Not one.
They may play one if that happens, but yes, they'll be the 4:25 window will be loaded
every week. Yeah,
and they'll get all their primetime spots, and then there's flex possibilities and stuff like that. Right. I mean, who knows if they'd be good? Although, you figure if they get their injured guys back, they're at least competitive. And so
It's
I
it's
would
a
love
weird.
to, I think it'd be, I would love to, I think it would not be a smart hire by the Cowboys for some other reasons, but I would love to see it because I think just the theater of it would be incredible.
Well, that's see, I'm torn on that. Like, it would be good for
It's a
us.
big, it's a big jump from, I don't think Deion was ever a coordinator in the NFL, right? That's a big
Right.
jump.
Well, that's my listen. It would be good for you and I personally, like from a business standpoint, because we'd be
Yes.
writing about it and blah blah blah. I know I would not be able to take it on a personal level because it would just, like you said, it would be like the Tebow stuff where you just want to just put your head in a dunk your head in a bucket of water and drown yourself. But I will say this too. Here's the thing about Deion. Like you said earlier, he was a good coach, Colorado.
He is a good coach, present.
Okay, well, it all depends on what your definition of a good coach is. And I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying this. I have absolutely no idea whatsoever, with 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter and Dallas down by 4, if Deion knows how to manage the clock and timeouts. I have no clue.
Well, the one thing
that's what coaching is to me. Again, you could do the Saturday to Monday rah 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 bullshit and get your X's and O's and all that. Sunday when the game starts, I have no idea if Deion's a good coach.
Well,
we've never seen it.
There's an argument to make that like the best coaches in the NFL are the ones who understand how to hire, right? Who will understand how to work with management. I'm sure motivation is a factor as well. So that's a fair question, but you also you can also hire people, Jimmy, great offensive coordinator, great defensive coordinator, and then you can hire clock management people now at this
None of these coaches know how to work the clock. It's just, even last week, like Sean McDermott.
You don't think Andy Reid?
Well, Andy Reid is good, but Andy Reid was lambasted for years about how bad he was.
He was killed for that.
Yeah. Right. But look at Sean McDermott last week. Like, even last, like, he's one of the worst.
I've watched every Bills game for like the last probably 10 years.
He's like bottom 3 worst in-game coaches in the NFL.
I think he's a great coach outside of game day. In fact,
right, that's right.
But I think game day management, I don't know if I call him bottom 3, but he's in the bottom half. I agree.
Throwing the ball late in the game last week, it's just like, what are you doing? Anyway,
he like every coach in history benefits from having a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Absolutely. Yeah. But him more so because he's really bad coaching the game.
Yeah, I would. I'm not gonna lie. I have a fondness for Buffalo. I'd like to see them win. I expect the Ravens to win.
Me too.
Which is a bummer, but I gotta be honest. I think just the last thing on Deion, because you mentioned Belichick.
Yeah,
and that's interesting because like I don't expect North Carolina to be like 11-2, but if on a sports media television and you want to get to North Carolina as much as possible, right?
Absolutely. They will be on week 1. They will be on all the time. I mean, they gotta fulfill, I guess, some obligations to the ACC network at ESPN, but
I know like at some point during the year, College Game Day will be there. They'll do all that stuff.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. All right.
What else do you want to get to?
Some randoms here. Right. I got something. Can I tell you something I just don't care about? And I guess I shouldn't say that. I'm supposed to care because I'm in sports media, but I just don't care.
Care about what you care about. You don't have to care about anything.
Venue.
Yeah, again, thankfully Marchand wrote most of that stuff. I'm glad I'm not glad it's dissolved because like people lost jobs, but the at a certain point, especially with the legalities of the stuff, it was not going to launch. I think it seemed rather obvious. Again, this gets back to the larger framework of what is a fair price point for these like sports skinny bundles. Like, what is a fair price point if you are just a sports fan and you want like X? ESPN is just one thing. ESPN flagship is the perfect example of this, right? If you only want ESPN, right, just everything on ABC, everything on ESPN, everything on ESPN Plus, like what is a fair price point for that? And then as a consumer, can you just live with that? Or do you got to buy 6 other packages? What is infuriating, and both of us have talked about this now ad infinitum, is because both of us come from world enough where we're cable people. And I think cable, I still have cable here where I am, and I'm probably going to subscribe to the end. It is just infuriating for consumers now how much money and how many subscriptions that they have to navigate if they are diehard sports fans.
That's exactly the key.
The industry has almost prompted people to become more casual sports fans because the price of having everything is too exorbitant.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Well, let me just clarify. When I say I don't care about venue, I don't mean, what I mean by that is whether venue exists or doesn't exist doesn't change my life. That's what I mean by I don't care
but
about it.
You already pay for all this stuff anyway.
Well, this is my point.
You get TNT, right? You have DirecTV still, or what do you have?
No, I have Fios, Verizon Fios.
Okay. All right.
Which I love, by the way.
Yes, but you get. I assume you get TNT, TBS, and ESPN.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I have cable. Okay. Yeah. Well, this is my point too, because DirecTV just came out this week. They're going to offer for $70 all the sports channels and the local networks.
Smart move by them.
But again, I looked at it, and just as you hit the nail on the head, because then I looked at it. Okay, so let's say you got that for $70.
Right.
You still need Prime for Thursday Night Football.
Yep.
Okay, you don't really need this, but let's say you're a diehard baseball fan. Apple has that Friday package that nobody watches or knows about.
Right. Yep.
Now,
I don't have DirecTV. So, what are their soccer? Can you get Premier League, or you'd have to get Peacock?
I don't know. I don't know. Right, but you're going to need Peacock. They put Notre Dame games on Peacock. They put Big Ten football games on Peacock. Right. So now you need Peacock.
Yep.
And who knows what's going to happen with Netflix and the NFL? They had I would deem Christmas Day a success.
If you're a WWE fan, you got to get Netflix, right? I assume that DirecTV thing doesn't have it.
Right. So they put it out there, $70. If you're a sports fan, you're still going to end up paying $200. There's just no, if you like all the sports. If you're someone like me who's, it's football, NFL, college football, baseball, NBA, you're good. But if you like everything, soccer, I know soccer people always say they need 4 different things to watch. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Tennis, golf.
Yep.
You're not going to get away. There is no plan today on January 15, 2025. There's no plan where you're paying under $200 if you like every sport.
100%. I think
not to mention if you want channels that are not sport, and those packages are catering to people who just want sports. What if you want a news channel, the Food Network, or what?
Interestingly enough, it's actually to be a non-sports fan saves you a lot of money now.
Absolutely.
If you just want, CNN, Fox News, CBS, NBC. Right. My guess is that I don't know how long it'll take, but we have to be heading to a universe where there'll be some kind of bundle for the streaming services.
It has to happen.
It'll inevitably end that, and my guess would be maybe somehow that Disney, Amazon, Comcast, which would end Peacock, they'll eventually form. I think they have to form some kind of partnership, and I don't know how much that would be, but you'd have to have the option to get all that because it's. At a certain point, it's not sustainable. And it is definitely not sustainable, in my opinion, for a Paramount Plus to survive long term. I mean, Peacock is backed by Comcast, so we'll see. But I think that's a 50-50 proposition. I mean, right now, Netflix, Amazon, Disney Plus, I guess maybe Apple TV just because it's Apple. But Apple TV, if you're a sports fan, why on earth would you? I mean, I guess you'd have to be a diehard MLS fan. Right. Or like you said, you have to have that baseball package, but they're not a factor in that. So, and the other thing too, again, I know both of us have written about this ad infinitum. Netflix is going to become a major player. It's just,
if anyone thinks that
told you this. And so I would be literally stunned if in 2029 or whenever the NFL can opt out of their deal, if Netflix doesn't have a package equivalent to an ESPN, an NBC, a Fox, a CBS. Do you agree?
I actually will take it a step further. I actually think the days of CBS and Fox are going to be numbered way sooner than people think.
I'm not willing to say that yet, but there are people out there who subscribe to your
Netflix. If Netflix wants to, they can blow CBS and Fox right out of the water and go to the NFL.
There's still a benefit for the NFL to be on over-the-air television.
The NFL has showed they really don't care.
Well, there's still 80% of the product on over-the-air television, right? So if it goes
right
Netflix, now,
okay. I'm not saying it's happening tomorrow, but your prediction I think 2029 when the contract's up or there's an out.
So tell me what you think. Okay, so you
Netflix
think at half the games?
Netflix, Amazon, Google, YouTube. That's where those games.
You would predict no over-the-air TV.
If they get anything, they'll get scraps.
You don't think the Super Bowl is going to be on over-the-air TV? Jim?
The rate at which people are canceling cable.
Oh, I get it.
I would think the NFL is going to be very proactive.
I still think we're going to have a universe of 70 million, 60 million, whatever it is, 80 million people who get the over-the-air stuff. I think it's still over 100 million right now.
But you're talking like someone who's our age. Nobody under 35 gives a flying fuck about over the air.
But they're still watching. I mean, they're still they're still watching a game originated from CBS, even if they're watching it on YouTube.
Okay, so maybe they give CBS and Fox like a 1 o'clock package, and Netflix gets a 4 o'clock package. But
maybe
but Netflix is going to. I say Netflix or Amazon or YouTube. I mean, Sunday Ticket's been a success on YouTube.
Listen, the reason why I'm not going to totally counter you is because the one precept of the NFL is greed, right? They runs them, and there's only there's there's only 1 or 2 companies that can really blow everybody out of the water, and you mentioned is Netflix. And
I never thought I'd see the day where Super Bowl wouldn't be on over the air.
I think in our lifetime it remains.
But I also never thought I'd see a day where they'd put playoff games on streaming.
That's true.
And they don't care that the streaming playoff games get way less viewers than network. They don't care. They want the money.
I think, again, don't you think, I don't want to take it so much into politics, but don't you think the NFL would want to avoid any kind of congressional kind of interference if they pulled off, let's say, really deep playoff game from Super Bowl off over the air? Why would you want that headache?
Right. Maybe. But would you agree? Okay, that's fair. But you're going to see a point where there's going to be multiple playoff games on streaming only.
I agree.
And it's coming sooner than people think. That's
my thought. I mean, it'll be interesting. Hopefully both of us will have a podcast back then. But it would be interesting. My thought is that in 2029, Netflix has a Fox or CBS package. But you're saying no, they may have a 50% of all games package. I'm not going to go that far, but that'd be interesting.
Right. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised at all if the NFL cut ties with CBS and Fox in 20. I wouldn't be surprised. That's all.
I mean, we'll see what happens with their business. I'll tell you something, by the way. This is just you'll appreciate this because I'm sure you talk to people in the business like this. You want to talk about agents and talent trying to become in with Netflix. I mean, that's like Usain Bolt level speed.
Right.
If you can get in now with Netflix on a sports end, you could be setting yourself for 20 years of big money.
As proven by their 700-person Christmas Day smorgasbord of analysts.
Yeah, which I was told by some prominent agents, high 5 figures, low 6 figures maybe for the people who did the games, but it didn't even matter what you were paid for that. What you want is
I heard that Netflix. I'm not talking about people who did the games, but the people in studio I heard got paid nothing. Nothing is in zero.
Maybe our definition of nothing is different.
I don't mean zero, but I heard I was told the money was terrible by someone who was offered one of the roles.
Maybe you know some people get paid a lot of money and they're insulted by 50 grand or whatever. I'm saying the point is you do that because that is you agree? That's an investment in your own long-term future.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
That's what I think we didn't really get to much WWE stuff, but this is where I think.
Well, I was going to say,
Testator's a genius for getting WWE money and ESPN money now.
All right, I was going to say, we'll wrap it up here with some WWE Netflix talk, so the people who get so mad when I talk about wrestling, they can go fast forward now to Sal.
Sal's coming on this episode, all right?
He's on every episode.
I know. Okay, good.
So let's talk about WWE Netflix.
Right.
To me, if you're a wrestling fan let's say you're a casual who pops into Monday Night Raw, is there any difference in your life with this move? I don't think this is... The wrestling fan will watch wrestling no matter where it is.
The one historical trait of wrestling fans is they'll go where the distribution is always.
Right, always.
They go from CW to TBS to Fox to wherever. They're an incredibly loyal audience. So yes, I think wrestling fans have got Netflix if they didn't already have it. the production quality of this thing is immensely high. I mean,
Yep.
the look of it is it looks like cinema at certain
I
times.
almost feel like it's too high sometimes. Let me preface this by saying this.
Again, we're only in week 2 or 3, so
Right.
let's see, week 15.
It's the overall. I know this is not the reality of what it is, but for me, when I'm scrolling through, let's say Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok, and I see like an old school 1992 Monday Night Raw video with Bobby, I actually prefer that to what it's become. Like it's cinema now.
It is, yeah.
I like the cheesiness factor of wrestling, and there's no more cheesiness.
What was interesting, even the opening to the LA show, the debut of Netflix, when they showed like the red carpetish kind of setup,
right?
Like with the drinks, and all the Netflix execs. First of all, my God, the fucking hospitality budget of WWE, what $15 million? Like, I mean, see all the celebrities who were invited to that thing. The Rock, who I know is your guy, a little over the top with like mentioning every Netflix executive and every Endeavor person known to man.
I'm how can I put this properly? I'm a little down on The Rock.
Listen, the guy is he is a absolute Hall of Famer. The fact that he's even still coming back, I give him a lot of credit. But like that, maybe it's a first night thing, but cutting a promo praising corporate was that's a lot to take, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, I think,
and I thought he was a heel. Now he cut a baby promo.
That's my point. I don't understand the storyline.
The storyline is let's kiss the Netflix ass.
No, but ass. Is he supposed to like have something with Roman Reigns? Is he supposed to have something with Cody Rhodes? But then they were all friends, so that I didn't understand the storyline of it. I want to say one thing about the production. The production is insane. It's from a good standpoint. I tuned in this week because I'm like, okay, it's week 2. Yep. Now let's see what happens here without all of the bells and whistles. They did an intro where they had a drone flying around the building towards Pat McAfee at the announce desk through the crowd. It was, it's visually stunning.
Yep. By the way, having the announcer gig for Raw is phenomenal. Like McAfee and Cole have a great gig now and I'm a big Cole fan. I think I like him personally. He's so energized now with this, but like, doesn't it even, I know people are gonna shit on wrestling and I get it. And trust me, there's a lot of things about the WWE that they got that are not great too, but
such as
that's a pretty prominent gig. Would you agree? Like that's 2 million people watching you.
Yeah. Of course it's a very prominent gig. And I think McAfee doesn't get enough credit for how hard he works.
I think he's great on WWE. Phenomenal.
I think he's great too, but even if he was
he's
bad,
not a baby face or heel he's in between, which is that's the hardest thing to be, is not to be baby face or heel. It's to be in between.
But this guy never ever misses his ESPN show ever. So he could be doing Monday Night Raw in LA like he was. He's doing his show from 12 to 3, does Raw in LA, and he's back in Indiana the next day at 12 o'clock.
Like, you think? Probably, right?
Well, yeah, but it has nothing to do with how you're flying. I mean, the workload while doing... He's
got a great work ethic, and I think he's smart. I think he knows, like, this is his time. You got to push it to this time, and at 50 years old, you kick back if you want.
We're taping this on Wednesday afternoon, and I will admit, for the past 24 hours, the number one story in the sports media pop culture world that I've been completely obsessed with is the Corey Graves story.
Yeah, I've just tangentially sort of followed it. Is it a work or is it real?
That's why I'm obsessed.
Okay.
We don't know.
My guess is
the best things in wrestling are when you don't know if it's a work or a shoot.
Yeah, which is why Rollins was a genius when Punk came back, and you thought like that whole reaction was a work, which it you thought that reaction was real when it was work.
Right. When I saw the Corey Graves tweet, and I saw it that night he put it out, I thought 100% work.
Right. But now you think...
Then I'm thinking, shoot, and he wasn't on NXT. Listen, if you're Corey Graves, I think you have a legitimate beef. Like, you did SmackDown for a lot of years, and now they've moved Wade Barrett over there, who was doing Raw, because they got to get McAfee in. Yeah. I saw someone say like, oh, maybe this will lead to a McAfee Corey Graves match. Like people, the wrestling fan and their imagination is great, but I am obsessed because I don't know. I don't know.
I don't
if
want
it's a work or a shoot.
Is Graves doesn't do NXT?
Well, no, so when McAfee came back now last week, they moved I guess what the plan was is to move Corey Graves to NXT.
Okay.
And I guess this past Tuesday was supposed to be his first NXT show. But then he went on Twitter and went nuts. So then now he was pulled from that show. Again, I don't know if that's a work or a shoot. I did a bad job when I had Triple H on because Triple H told me that Joe Tess was going to SmackDown and I didn't ask him about Corey Graves, which I should have.
Is the idea that Corey Graves is ticked off because he sees NXT as a demotion, or is it just something else?
You have to go read yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay. But NXT also, is still it's still WWE property, right? I mean,
it's not Monday Night Raw.
No, it's not Monday. And it's not SmackDown either.
What I love,
do you like this will be the last thing.
Yeah.
Let me take this back. It's very clear that early on they're bringing all their stars to roll on Monday night, like just to get people excited. But at a certain point, like that's not sustainable. So if I was talking to you 8 months from now, like what's the Monday night like main event? Is it like Gunther versus Sheamus, or is it still going to be like CM Punk versus Roman?
Well, this past week it was Damian Priest against Finn Balor.
Okay, well there you go. That answers my question.
I think that's what it was.
To the end. Okay.
Yeah, I am more into like they had such a good storyline with Cody Rhodes trying to finish his story.
Yeah,
and then Roman Reigns and all that. Like you got to have a storyline.
Well, the story is still great because there's still a lot of tentacles to that.
Right. I just don't know what
even bringing McIntyre. I like McIntyre is awesome, and even he's clearly now the. He basically is going to play the role of Roman Reigns is playing everybody in the back. Why isn't anybody paying attention to this? So that's bringing now him into the bloodline. Yeah. The bloodline is a great thing.
But I don't understand why they had The Rock and Cody being best friends when it was left. I didn't get it, and I didn't understand. I didn't understand the Undertaker segment.
Made no sense. First of all,
I didn't get.
I'm stealing this from Cornette, but you play the Undertaker music and he comes out in the American Badass stuff. It makes no sense. What do you do? I know you want him to be on that night, but like what's just have him walk out then and wave or something. I don't know.
Your reaction is the same as mine. I didn't understand.
What do you think? I have to ask you this. Maybe you talked about this.
Yeah.
What was your take on Hogan getting booed out of the arena?
I loved it because I've always hated Hulk Hogan from when I was a kid.
Yeah,
listen. When I was a kid,
universe.
When I was a kid and I thought wrestling was real, I hated Hulk Hogan. I always rooted for Piper and Rude and Jake the Snake and Ted DiBiase. I always rooted for those guys. And then I said this last week in the segment with Sal. Like, I see Hulk Hogan and all I could think about is that tape after he had banged Bubba the Love Sponge's wife and said those vile things. Like I can't get that out of my head.
I listen to Cornette and Brian Last a lot. I love that podcast. And they have done many times over the years chronicling Hulk Hogan's lies. It's not like just his exaggerations.
Right,
it's unbelievable. Right. I just never thought I'd see it. I will say this though, Jimmy. I do think a change of venue, if Hogan comes out in San Antonio, something like that, I do think the reaction's different.
Yeah,
and if you're Hogan, I mean, I don't even know how WWE feels. Everything for them is a work, but you can probably use it to your advantage if you really want to be cynical and make him a heel.
What are you going to do? Have him wrestle? I mean,
a heel be your spokesperson.
To me, he comes on. I want to change the channel.
Yeah, I'm not. It doesn't do it for me.
I'll give you one thing here. I'll end on this. As a podcaster, maybe you have a take on this because you keep mentioning Jim Cornette.
Yeah.
I desperately, when I had Triple H on a few weeks ago, desperately wanted to ask him, would you ever bring Jim Cornette back? I had asked him,
is there anyone would go back? Do you? I don't think he'd want that. You mean for a payday? For like
since we're talking about wrestling, I will quote Ted DiBiase. Everyone has a price.
Yeah.
I just think, and again, this is because I'm old and the WWE would never do it because they don't care about people my age. But like, if you could somehow get Cornette involved with Heyman.
Oh my God. It'd be amazing.
Exactly. That's what I'm like. I would do anything for that.
I don't know I guess if you paid him enough, maybe. But Cornette has never struck me in listening to his podcast as somebody who wants to necessarily go back and perform. That said, he's got a great rivalry He takes shots at Heyman, who we both love all the time.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, most of it is in a fun way, but he takes shots. But they are, along with Heenan, the three greatest managers of all time or advocates of all time.
Yeah.
Not even close, in my opinion. There's no one else who's there. And Cornette, I forgot, is a wrestling genius to me. He just is.
Yeah. Well, if
not infallible, but he's a wrestling genius. I would love that. I think it would be incredible if you could ever get those two together. But Cornette is so connected to the WCW and Jim Crockett that I don't think the McMahon group, and I consider Triple
But he was there already. He was already in WWE for many years.
Left after a year. But he was out of Connecticut. I don't see it. I would love to see it, but I don't see it. Why can't we get more? How come?
Hurry up. We got to go.
Yeah, quick. Why are there not other Heymans who have become that prominent?
Because the guy's a gift. I don't think it's very easy to do what he does.
But when we were growing up watching this stuff, there were Mr. Fuji. There were others who
but no one. But those guys, none of them were able to speak like Heyman. None of them, except for Cornette and Heenan. Yeah.
But they're not even. But they're not even. They don't even try to get managers. They don't try to develop managers anymore. Do you agree?
I agree. I love the role of a manager.
I'm with you.
I miss the old school manager, where the ref turns his back, he hands the guy the brass knuckles. Cornette's.
I mean, do you watch AEW at all or no?
No.
Okay, I was going to, because Cornette has a take that maybe Adam Cole would be an excellent manager. But I would love to see, I don't know who it is. You'd have to think, actually could be a great manager just because he's very good on the mic is The Miz.
Yeah, I could see that.
He'd be a pretty good manager.
I can't believe you listen to Cornette's podcast so much. Isn't it like 6 hours long?
Yeah, it's great though.
I can't do that.
The guy's a genius. He's so facile with his thoughts. Again, if you don't like him, whatever, but he's also, they exposed a guy who was allegedly, probably more than allegedly.
I'll tell you what when the Vince McMahon doc was on Netflix.
Yeah.
Then Cornette did a podcast of, recapping each episode.
Yeah.
It was, I could not get enough of that. I could not get enough of. All right. We love Jim Cornette. All right.
Shout out to Brian Lance too. Clearly is the producer of that and does an excellent job.
I appreciate you coming on. Richard Deitsch from The Athletic.
We agreed on a lot, but sometimes that happens.
It's all right. The Athletic, the Sports Media Podcast. You like to plug any guests you have coming up, or
I had Al Michaels last week. He was excellent. Who's coming up? I just put one out yesterday, but just the usual sports chatter. I'm still booking as we have. Forward. I don't need to promote.
Sounds good. All right, Richard. Be well. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jimmy.
And enjoy the rest of the NFL playoffs.
I will. Good to see you.
All right. You too. All right, joining me now, as he does every week, for our Traina Thoughts segment from WFAN Radio in New York, SNY TV in New York, my buddy Sal Licata. Sal, how are we doing?
Great. Looking forward to the best sports weekend of the year coming up.
It's up there.
You wouldn't think it's the best?
Well, I mean, the reason I wouldn't say it, I'm just thinking this through. It's 4 NFL games. I like the weekend in September when you've got NFL, college football, and the MLB playoffs. This is the best NFL weekend, but I'm not going to watch any other sports this weekend.
Yeah, I just love the standalone mega battles. Wild Card Weekend's great for the action, the nonstop action, but generally those matchups aren't as good. Now we're getting down to it. And the 4 standalones, you bet the games, you watch them, you're drinking, eating, whatever. I love this. For me,
you could do that. You could do that every week during the NFL season.
Yeah, but the games don't. You're right, but this is different. Divisional rounds.
Right, the games. It's intense and it's important, and I give you that. How did we
get to the championship game? Winners get to the championship game, which then is the ultimate because then those teams have the right to play for the Super Bowl. These next couple of weeks, I love them.
How did you do wagering last week in the wild card games?
I was good because here's the one thing where they get you. These same game parlays and the anytime touchdown.
Oh no, you don't do those.
I only do it I only do it if I don't love, like I didn't love anything in the Packers-Eagles game, so I was like, all right, I'll throw $10 on whatever. But that could add up, 10 here, 10 there, 10. But I love the Bills. That was my best bet, so I was good for the weekend. I ended up being up a little bit.
All right. Stay away from the same game parlays. Everyone who uses DraftKings, FanDuel, whatever, they have those offers. Don't do them. Sucker bet.
Yeah,
I can pull out the statistics on how much of a sucker bet it is and how no one wins.
And the odds aren't even great because, like, you would think if you pick a player to score a touchdown, like, they don't score touchdowns every week, even the best players, obviously. Right. And they're like minus 130. It should always be plus money. So they get you. But for me, at least, I've had some fun where it's responsible action, even though I know it's a long shot.
It's just very hard to hit 4 legs of a – you have to hit – I think the minimum they'll throw out there is 3. But it's usually 3, 4, 5 legs. It's like I had an absolutely heartbreaking, crushing defeat on Monday night. I'm getting a FaceTime right now from Chris Mad Dog Russo, by the way.
Pick it up.
No, I can't pick it up. Should I pick it up?
Yeah, go ahead. Pick it up. This is great.
Let me see. Doggy, I'm taping my podcast right now with Licata. Do you want to join the pod?
No, I can't because I'm on radio today, so I got to go on radio first.
All right. So you're going to be on Thursday. We'll get the full Chalamét recap.
What a nice guy.
Did you get a phone number?
You know, I didn't, but if I had to reach out, I would be. Did you know that Searchlight put the thing in heat all over the UK?
Unbelievable. We gotta get a full recap from you.
Thanks to you.
Oh, stop. What we gotta get him on the Sirius show.
I gotta do that. I'm telling you, you can tell right away I'm not bullshit. He's a very good kid. He's a nice kid.
We're gonna put that on the podcast. Can we put that on the pod? We'll bleep it out.
People are talking about this, right? It's a big story today.
Oh, it's a huge story. Everyone picked it up. The Post, awful announcing.
Doggies everywhere.
And you.
All right. I'll call you back. Unbelievable. That was on my list of things. Were you able to hear that?
I know, because you had the headphones. I don't know. We couldn't.
Oh, all right. So we'll cut it out. All right, Shelby. If you can't hear it, cut it out. All right.
No, it was still fine. We heard enough, or at least seeing you talk to him was fine.
He's in his afterglow from being on the red carpet at a complete unknown. We'll discuss that later, and we'll get into it later. Let's stick with this, but that's what's happening here. So Shelby had some editing to do. It's my bad. Terrible job by me not getting the audio properly, but I forgot I had the earbuds in.
He FaceTimes you and not like a call?
Oh, he's a big FaceTimer, which is a no-no, but, with him.
Yeah, you're right, exactly.
Yeah. All right, so let me tell you about my devastating gambling loss.
Okay.
DraftKings had a wager on Monday night in the Rams-Vikings game. Will Sam Darnold and Matt Stafford each throw for 15 yards in each quarter? Well, at least 15 yards in each quarter. So I'm like, okay, this is definitely happening. It was
That's a weird bet, but go ahead.
It was minus 135. Stafford throws 124 yards in the first. Anyway, to make a long story short, I lose the bet because the Rams obviously are blowing out the Vikings. It's a non-competitive game, and they don't throw for a yard in the fourth quarter. They ran the ball every down.
I feel like you've done these bets before and have had the same luck with it.
Yeah. Because that's what I do when I don't like a game. I'll find something like that.
Okay, but it's a similar suckers bet where you needed actually 8
I needed two. I needed 2 things to happen.
No, every quarter. That's 8.
You may have got me on that one. That's a good way to look at it. I didn't look at it that way.
And I hate squandering wins. Like, I love the Rams, but I wasn't going to bet them straight for some reason. So then I tried to get cute and parlay the Rams, and then I needed Justin Jefferson, who did squat because Sam Darnold stunk. You just got to – I really do think you got to narrow it down and pick 1 or maybe 2 things that you think is going to happen throughout the course of the game to be an effective gambler.
Here's my defense now that I'm thinking about it. if you're betting one of those same game parlays, they're usually like plus 500, plus 6, My thing was minus 135, meaning it should have happened.
Right, but even to me, that's even worse because I'd rather have the 10 to win 100 or whatever than lay 130 to win 100.
Maybe you're right. Depressing. All right, what do you like this week? Chiefs minus 8.5 against the Texans. Lions minus 9.5 against the Commanders. Eagles minus 6 against the Rams. Ravens minus 1.5 against the Bills.
I will be betting the Texans. Now, I have some friends coming over from out of town, and that could get tricky because then we try to watch the games and do a little family plays. So not everybody's going to be on the same page. So then you start to do those, over receiving yards and touchdowns and this and that. But straight up, I like the Texans to cover that spread, and I might even take a little dabble on the money line. I think that they're a live dog in that game.
8.5.
What do you think? I know you're a Chiefs guy. What do you think there?
I don't think the Texans will win the game. 8.5 is very high.
What about Washington getting 9.5? Whatever you just said?
I will take those points.
Yeah, me too. I think Detroit should win the game, but I don't know with Jaden Daniels and the way that Detroit's played defense outside of against Sam Darnold. I'm taking the dogs this weekend, even with the Eagles.
I think maybe I would tease the Commanders and the Rams. I can't believe the Rams are getting 6.
That's what I mean. There's 3 big spreads on the board. Rams are a good freaking team.
Maybe, yeah. I like the. I will bet the Commanders. I will bet the Rams. I will bet the Ravens, and then in the Chiefs game, I don't know. I would maybe tease the Chiefs down. Maybe.
Kelce anytime touchdown.
No.
Postseason. No. Taylor Swift shots.
I might do. Mahomes rushing yards is a bet I like to do sometimes when the Chiefs play.
It's low, right? They're always low.
Yeah, fairly low.
You're better. You know the thing that drives me nuts about that? Any of those props, right? Those different things. Yeah. It takes a while to find them and sift through the ones that I really like.
Yeah.
And then, let's say I put them in the parlay. By the time I go to click the bet and find everything I want, the odds have changed, or this bet can't be. I'm like, Jesus, what are we doing here?
The odds have changed. Drives me nuts. It's infuriating. DraftKings, it starts flashing yellow. It's it makes me nervous, and then I start panicking.
Yeah,
exactly. I love the Ravens. I do love. I don't see how the Bills stop that offense.
I'm fascinated by that game.
I don't think the Bills can stop Derrick Henry. I just don't think it's possible. Their defense, I don't see it.
Right, but can Baltimore stop on the road? Stop Josh Allen and the Bills? I know they were slowed down a little by Denver, but only for
their
so
defense
long.
has played a lot better lately. The Ravens. I think it's going to be points. I can't see Buffalo stopping the Ravens unless, Lamar does his Lamar playoff thing.
I can't wait for that game. That is going to be such a great game. Maybe the game.
It really is. It really is.
I'm sorry. Before we move on, no more Peacock games. Do we even have one? I don't think so. Right?
No more. No more.
So that's not a thing. Okay. So
it was Amazon last week. It was Amazon last week.
Okay, I have that, so I'm covered. Who has the Chiefs? Who has the Bills and Ravens?
That's CBS. Jim Nantz.
It is
Tony
Nantz
Romo.
and Romo. Okay.
Yep. The streaming got me bad set with the Ravens and the Steelers because the game was non-competitive. You knew the Ravens were going to win. It was 21-0 at halftime. And I was tired. And I said, you know what? I'll go in bed and I'll watch it when I'm in bed. I go in my room, I get in bed, and then I realize I don't have this. I don't have any streaming set up on my bedroom TV. Like, oh, Jesus, what a disaster.
You got to adapt and evolve. Did you hear?
How about this? The first Monday Night Raw on Netflix, I go to watch it, can't watch it.
Why?
Because my brother and my niece were using my Netflix. I worked around it, though.
No, wait. But aren't you allowed to have multiple sign-ins?
Well, I have it where you could have 2 sign-ins. You could pay $10 more and have 4 sign-ins.
Yeah, but... Okay,
which I never needed to do because I never really watched Netflix that much. But now with Monday Night Raw... But then I realized when Netflix did the crackdown, my dad got his own account. Never uses it. So I logged into his account and was able to watch it that way.
Okay.
What were you going to say? You were going to say something. I cut you off.
I hate picking on announcers. It's just not something that I find fun to do.
Right.
But Did you happen to catch Kirk Herbstreit's mistake on Saturday night?
About who the Ravens play next?
Yeah, like
I heard it.
I know maybe I'm nitpicking here a little bit, but I'm already bothered because I view Herbstreit as a great college guy who flies into the NFL. So that's number one, strike one against him. Like it bothered me so much that he started confusing me. I think I know the format. I know what's going on. Right. They're likely going to play the Bills. If this happens, then maybe they go. Like if Denver upset the Bills, different story. But he made it like a foregone conclusion that they're playing the Texans, and I'm like, what the hell's going on here? To where I question myself, how could that happen? You're in the NFL playoffs.
You answered your own question. It happens because he's a college football guy.
But then he shouldn't be doing the NFL games.
I think he's good. He made a bad mistake. He made a very, very, very bad mistake. But I chalk that up to him just being a college guy. The one that bothered me way more, which I wrote about, was Romo, who I love. I'm a Tony fan. I think I'd put Nance and Romo as maybe my second favorite booth behind Buck and Aikman. But Tony, you can't say after the Broncos fake punt, I knew that was going to happen. You can't say that after the fact. You got to say before the fact, look out for a punt. I would expect Sean Payton to fake. Look out for the fake. I would expect a fake punt at some point today. The Broncos are going to need some tricks. They pull off the fake punt, and then he says 3 times to Nance, I told you last night this was going to happen. Well, you know what? You're supposed to tell us.
Right. I read your column, and I was surprised because I actually thought Romo had a good game. I was like, wow.
He did, other than that. That bothered me a lot.
I like his personality, even where my favorite thing about Romo, where you saw Hamlin have the interception that was overturned, and he was like, he knew he didn't catch the ball. But he went through with the celebration, which is fun. You might not have a moment like that, which I respect. That's fine. And then on the sideline, when they showed him, he looked like he was shocked at the call being overturned. And Romo even said, I don't know if I believe that that's authentic, or he's giving one of those, which I thought was just a great. I like Romo. I thought he did a great job, but I thought you brought up a good point as well. I
like Tony too. I think he's a very fun listen. He's very good with there was one play where he's like, okay, here, Johnson's definitely going to go in motion. Boom, Johnson goes in motion. I love that stuff. But don't brag about how you knew it was a fake punt if you didn't tell us it was going to be a fake punt. That's just like announcer 101 stuff. So that really bothered me. But I like Tony, and that, like I said, after Buck and Aikman, that crew is the one I like to listen to the most. I'll tell you one thing. It was funny. You had asked me last week about betting these games if I go by coach quarterback. The reason I love the Ravens too, Sean McDermott is so bad coaching these games. It's frightening. They were throwing the ball in the fourth quarter last week up instead of trying to shoot. Like, I cannot believe how these coaches do not understand time management, timeouts, and situational football late in these games. It's really hard to believe that none of them know what they're doing. None of them.
It's an epidemic, and it should. Like, to me, the easiest thing to do as a head coach in the NFL would be to manage the clock. And I say that because I feel like you or I, based on either watching the games or playing Madden football our whole lives, can figure it out. We're all watching from the couch going, timeout, call a timeout. And Bowles did it, Tomlin, like they all do it. I don't understand it. All the other stuff is the hard stuff, getting players to buy in, coming up with the schemes, the game planning.
Yep.
How come nobody knows how to do it anymore? Except for Belichick, they all have issues with it.
Even Monday night, I mean, the game was pretty much over, but like the Vikings were letting all this time just go down on the clock. It's like, well, don't you understand what you're supposed to be doing? It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. All right, so I guess we should get into this dog thing with Timothee Chalamét. Here's the thing about it. I'm happy that Dog got to go to the premiere and he met Chalamét. But the thing I feel bad about is that I couldn't have any less interest in Bob Dylan. So like, I haven't seen the movie. I haven't seen the performance. But Bob Dylan's music, it's not that it does nothing for me. It's actually like it does negative for me. Like it bothers me.
I couldn't name you a song. I'm sure I've heard plenty. I'm not familiar with his work. But when I think of Bob Dylan, I think of that recent special that you put me onto. We talked about We Are the World
on Netflix. Yeah,
and he came across like such a dick in that. Did he not?
Wait, now I'm trying to remember. Wasn't it?
Like
he had trouble. He was having trouble with what? Like there was something.
I don't know if there was. I forget the issue, but I felt like he left. He didn't want to stay there all night. He was getting. He came across to me as like, ugh, I don't know if I like that guy. Anyway, I might watch the movie. I might not. I'm with you though. I'm not a big Bob Dylan fan.
It's not that I'm not. Like I'm actually his music is a turn it off immediately for me.
Give me what's his most popular song? Do you know?
Blowing in the Wind.
Nah, I'm not familiar with it.
It does nothing for me. But I'm happy for
Dog on the red carpet. Dog hanging out with Timothee Chalamét. Come on.
And not just hanging out on the red carpet in London.
Yeah, I know. The whole thing is just wild.
And then he starts talking to Chalamét on the red carpet, and all these videos are on Dog's Twitter and Instagram if you want to check them out. And he says like, Stephen A, great job by Stephen A helping me out with this. He goes, he doesn't know anything though about Bob Dylan. Like he's trashing Stephen A to Timothee Chalamét. It's right. It's so good. It's so good. I can't. The bad thing about it is he didn't do his Sirius XM show Tuesday and Wednesday, so we got to wait now till Thursday when this comes out to get the full recap. But
so he's all okay, right? Okay,
yeah. Unbelievable. I'm trying to think about that whole thing. Like if that was me, like I don't know if I'd go to London for a movie premiere.
No, you 100% would not. I'd be like, come on, dude, we got to go. Let's go do this, experience it. You'd be like, just watch it at home.
I'll watch it. Yeah, I'll go to the movie theater 10 minutes from my house in the recliner. And
it's a lot. Did you see the stuff with his son?
Oh, yeah. I was texting the son about because
Colin?
Yeah, because so Dog calls his son to tell him his son Colin to tell him he's going to the premiere and asks his son if he can house it while he's in London because he took his daughter. Just a full out snubbing.
And Colin, by the way, all the mannerisms, he's exactly like his father. All the hesitations, the pauses.
See, I've never been to a movie premiere and I never will get invited to one. But the question there is, if you get invited to a movie premiere, can you ask for more tickets? Could he have said, I need an extra?
No. And by the way, you have been invited because you've taken me. Like Curb Your Enthusiasm season premiere.
Oh, we didn't walk the red carpet.
Well, but there was a red carpet there. We're not,
that's true.
Maybe now, but no, back there. By the way, it's every time I see his kids, his daughter was there on the red carpet with him, Colin. I still can't believe that many years ago, I babysat his kids a day at an amusement park with Dog and his 3 children. Like, it's just bizarre to me. There was such little kids back then, and now they're full-grown adults.
We're very old.
Over that.
We're very old.
Well, that's the sad part of it, yeah.
Very. We're not just old anymore. It's very old.
He turned 65. How old did Dog turn?
Yeah.
65, okay. Yeah.
I'll tell you what hit me over the weekend. Howard Stern turned 71.
Wow.
And people are mad, they say like his show's not what it used to be. Like they want a 71-year-old throwing baloney at a girl's ass that's covered in mayo. Like he's 71. Like you want him to do the Sibian, it's ridiculous. But that one hit me. Howard 71, Dog 65. It's crazy.
Shit.
Speaking of old people, my dad had a banner week.
Why? What do we got?
So he calls me the other day and he's like, do you have any extra phone chargers? So I'm like, I have 1 million phone chargers. Whatever you need, I'll bring it. He goes, I need 2. They don't work anymore. I said, all right. I'm like, I'll bring the wires. He goes, well, do you have the plugs too? I said, I have 1 million wires. I have a handful of plugs. I'm like, don't you have the plugs? He goes, no. He goes, I threw them out. I'm like, you don't throw out the blocks when you have a charger. You just throw out the wires get frayed or ripped. You don't throw out the. He's like, I didn't know. I'm like, I know you didn't know, but that's the problem. That's what's bad, that you don't know. And he threw out the blocks, which pissed me off. And then he calls me up. He said he can't. His Hulu's not working. He uses my Hulu. He's like, it says all this stuff about logging in, blah blah blah. So I go over there. I put on his TV. I go to Hulu. It works fine. No issues. I'm like,
what happened? What was the issue?
He's like, I don't know. It didn't do that for me. I'm like,
oh, God.
Okay, sure. I just can't handle it. Speaking of Hulu, were you a Were you ever at all a Jerry Springer show guy?
Oh, we're watching the documentary now on Netflix. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So all right. So I was never a Jerry Springer guy ever.
I remember watching it as a kid on occasion, but I was probably like 15, 16 years old, just watching the dumb stuff and whatever, getting a little mild kick out of it. I never loved it, but I did check it out on occasion.
I heard Howard and his crew talking about it this week, and that's what made me intrigued to watch it. Give me some info though. It's not one episode. It's like multiple.
I think it's 2 parts. I saw the first part last night. I'm intrigued to see the second part. It's fascinating from a mind of a member in the media to how he was just your average anchor in Cincinnati or wherever the hell he was doing news or whatever, trying to do a talk show that was bland and boring, turning into this massive success to where they beat Oprah.
Right.
With this smut and garbage that they put out there, and then of course took it too far. But it's just fascinating to think what they would get away with on TV back then.
What hooked me in was Howard played like 2 or 3 clips from it, and I was like, "This sounds insane."
Yeah, it is.
So I was like, maybe I'll check this out. So how long was the episode you watched last night?
Maybe an hour. I forget.
Right,
It was.
so,
I'd say an hour.
So 2 parts, an hour each.
Yeah, it's an easy 2. I'll probably watch the second one tonight. Although we got Married at First Sight, we got to watch. But yeah, I'm going to probably check that out.
Yeah, with football dying down now, I'll need to get in some shows. So that I said I got to ask Sal about that, because just the clips they played, like from what Howard said, I don't know if it's the first episode or second episode, but from what he played, it's like the producers. It's really about the producers more than I guess Jerry Springer, about how they had to keep topping themselves with the bookings, and the bookings were so ridiculously just disgusting.
Well, the show was failing, and then it was moved to overnight.
Right.
And then basically they were told, if you don't get the ratings up, it's going to be canceled.
Right.
They brought in some guy who was like a guru for coming up with the creative. He used to write the headlines for the Inquirer.
Right.
So then he took the show to another level. Jerry played along, and they started to get massive ratings. Mm-hmm. Although the tease was about the fallout and the damage that it did. Like, they sold their soul.
Right.
To what extent? So I'm looking forward to seeing the fallout.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't know if there's any connection, but like it makes me think of like that video of the Eagles fan with the Packers fan this week, and it's like
he got fired, right?
That's what I saw. That I didn't follow up to see if it's a reputable source. That, like, I don't know where that info came from. I didn't follow up on it.
I thought I saw it in the Post.
Maybe.
I mean, it's a whole other thing with just people.
But when I saw it, I mean, that one hits you a little harder because it's just so bad. But I think about you right away, and I'm like, this is why I tell Sal all the time, I would never go to a football game as long as I live.
Yeah,
just animals, just filled with animals.
And it's gotten worse. Everybody's videoing, everybody's fighting,
and everybody hates each other. I mean, it's society overall. It's crazy.
Agreed. And I know you've always been in that regard for the most part, like not wanting to go out to certain things. But football, I'll do it because I think it's good for me, for my show, to say I was at the Giant game or a Jet game, just to get a feel for one game a year, maybe, especially now that I'm in Jersey. But the experience, I mean, come on. Imagine
that doesn't happen at a baseball game.
Well, I don't know.
I'm not saying there aren't fights. I'm not saying there aren't whatever. But I've never seen a video from a baseball game where a guy stands up and says what he said to that.
It's putting woman. Also, obviously, it's horrific what
because
he said
they're all drunk.
About the woman, and then you're putting the husband in a tough spot because if somebody said that to my wife or my daughter, my first instinct is to want to, you fight with them, but you can't do that. So,
well, that's a lot of people have said that, but now if you put listen, if the guy would have went up there and punched the idiot and knocked him out, no one would say 2 words. And a lot of people would applaud it, and you give him credit. The flip side of that is these 2 people came from Green Bay to Philadelphia, and then he punches a guy, they're getting kicked out of the game.
Right, exactly. So, and also you're not going to be allowed back in a stadium. Maybe the NFL bans you. You just don't know, like. The fighting, while it sounds great in theory and in the moment, and it's something that I would want to do, my natural instinct, it's not the smart thing to do. Right. Then you're also on tape, and then your job could see you punching somebody, and now you get fired. So that guy, the guy who was being vulgar and yelling nasty things, he got what he deserved by being that way. I'm not saying that should be the be all end all of his life and career and get him. He hopefully learns from the mistake and can move on, but you can't act like that. Like it's just rude and wrong.
And it was all way too easy and familiar for him, the way he said it. Like,
yeah,
I don't think that was probably that guy's first incident. The other thing you said, which fascinates me, we'll end it on this. I would love to see some sort of documentary, or maybe ESPN could do like one of those 360s or some investigative. I want to know the exact details of when someone gets banned from a stadium, how they enforce that. Like, what is the technology they have? How do they, like, if that guy tried to go to the Eagles game this Sunday, how are they stopping him from walking in that stadium? How do they know who he is? Like, what, every usher, every ticket taker has his face. I want to know. There's got to be some sort of technology or some sort of plan. I'd love to know what it is.
The Garden, I know, has some kind of face scan. But again, when does that kick into play? Because I could give you my ticket, like. Right. So what? A face recognition system that as soon as you walk through the turnstile? I mean, I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. So let's say you got banned from the Garden. Not out of the realm of possibility. I know what you've done there. And you get banned from the Garden. You walk through the turnstile. There's some camera that takes a picture of your face, and the computer starts like, okay, blaring, get this guy out of here. He's banned. But they've got to tell the person who's working where the turnstile is, or do they wait for you to get to your seat and then they throw you? I would love to know how it goes down. I would love to know.
The guys at Yankee Stadium that grab Mookie Betts, they're banned.
Right. Now, yeah, exactly. Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Now, those guys go to a Twins game. How are they getting banned?
I don't know. Great question.
I want a TV network to give me a special on this, please.
And why don't you get somebody on? It's actually a fascinating conversation. I'd be curious about it. You should find out.
Who the hell would I get on?
Go through the league or ask about this specific thing. Hey, how does this happen when somebody is banned from the stadiums? I mean, I'd be curious to know.
I'll pitch that idea to editors at SI. It could be a good magazine story.
Yeah.
All right. Sal, enjoy the best weekend of the year for yourself. Now you got friends coming over which day?
One's driving down from Saratoga Saturday morning. The other is flying in from Milwaukee Saturday afternoon. My buddy Wink, who you met and is a big listener of the podcast. You've met him plenty of times before. He's coming in from Milwaukee, and we'll be getting together for both days. So
both days you will have people over.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my wife out of the house, but
there it is. We were almost out. We were almost done.
Incident. Then she started making me feel bad. Like, what? I can't stay. I'm like, it's not really you, but it's Sammy too. Our daughter. Like, I just want to. I don't want to go out to watch the games. I'd rather be home. But then the incident the other day is, 12:45. She gets back from food shopping, and then I'm like, all right, it's go time. It's 12:45. This is Sunday. Now you're back from food shopping, meaning you take over, Sammy. You feed Sammy. Like, I'm going to feed myself and go. I got to make bets. And then she was like, oh, can you just help me with Samira and feed her? And I'm like, I lost it a little bit. I admit I was in the wrong, but I was like, I got 10 minutes to get my bets in. The games are going on. I'm like, no, can't you do it? You were just out food shopping. Like, I got stuff to do. You feed her, I'll feed me. I got my bets. Almost cost me a win on that Bills-Broncos game.
How long were you in the doghouse after that incident?
All day.
All day.
I had to try to smooth it over. After the Bills won, and I was happy naturally because I cashed out.
But see, I give your wife credit from this standpoint, because if she really wanted to get you back, see, she's going about this all wrong. The plan when you piss her off is not to then leave you alone for the day. She should be in there chewing your ear off while you're watching the games. That's how she should get her revenge. You being in the doghouse and her leaving you alone, that's a win for you.
Yes, but I also know what's coming. Like, being iced out from 1 to 4 is okay. I know on the back end of that, I'm going to pay it. What? So I had to smooth it over during Packers-Eagles.
You can be iced out from 1 to 4. That's not a problem.
I didn't love anything in the Packers-Eagles game, so I was okay not being locked in with my bets at that particular point. But
soon as the Bills covered, then you said, all right, let me fix this situation.
Yeah, but you know why I needed the extra time? Because as we talked about before, those effing sites, like with the crazy parlays and stuff, it takes time.
Well, why are you waiting so late in the day to
in.
make your bets?
Huh?
Why are you waiting so late in the day to make your bets?
Well, that was, because she said, I'm going to go out at 10 a.m. Are you okay with that? I said, yeah, as long as you're back, 12:30, whatever. So by 12:45, once you got back, that's good. But now I need to be left alone to get these things in. Not, oh, you're back and I can help with Sammy. No, I'm sorry.
There seems to be a miscommunication about the exact time you need to be completely free.
I don't think, I need at least a half hour, I think.
Yeah, but in fairness to her, if the game starts at 1 and she's back at 12:45, she thinks she did a good job.
Yes, and she did. She did a great job until she asked that I continue to help feeding Samira lunch. That's where we had a little bit of an issue. Also, I feel guilt because I'm like, I do want to help, but like, I can't. I told you to be home.
All right, let me ask you a stupid question.
Yeah.
Can you feed your daughter while you watch the game?
No. Well, yeah, while I watch, yes. Not while I'm trying to make the bets.
Oh, so this is more about the degeneracy than the actual watching the game.
Which also led to even more guilt because my anger came from the frustration I might be missing a Bills winner or a potential parlay bet. That's where it really stemmed from.
Now, so now this week you're going to have your friends over.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, this is a lost cause this weekend.
This is a recipe for disaster right here.
I'll update you next week.
I can't wait. All right, Sal. Take it easy. Stay out of trouble.
All right. I'll try. Talk to you later.
Bye. All right. My many, many thanks to Richard Deitsch, Sal Licata, you for listening. Before I wrap it up, just a quick reminder, if you've missed any recent episodes of SI Media with Jimmy Traina, go into the archives, give them a listen, and please make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Iron Eagle was on the show last week. We had the WWE Chief Content Officer Triple H on the podcast to get into the Netflix deal. We had Mike Tirico, Sean McDonough, and we did a year in review pod with Peter Schrager and Andrew Perloff. So if you missed any of those episodes, go into Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts, give them a listen. They're also on the ESI YouTube page. Just do a little search on YouTube, and you can find them there. And make sure, again, you subscribe to SI Media with Jimmy Traina. And if you could rate and review, that helps as well. All right. Thanks for listening. Appreciate it. We'll see you next week. Stay safe and take care.